Awesome. So let me just go back to this really quick as y'all are coming in. Welcome. We are answering in the chat where your program is, what's the name of it, what is your location, what is your role, and we are commenting any words that you think of or anything you want to say about the picture you see. One thing I saw someone say was AI slop, which I appreciate. It is a good way to describe it. And we'll get started here in 1 minute. Oh, wow, we have someone in from New York. Welcome. Anyway, thanks, Katie. Salmon in the water, broken heart. that is also a good one. Sushi, that works too. All right. Well, welcome everyone. With this picture, I found it to be a somewhat humorous, but also helpful segue into our topic, talking more about AI. And last time we talked a little bit about how AI works and how it is a predictive model. This is a really great example of how, based on the data it's trained on and maybe what it's exposed to a little more, that it does its best to give you what it thinks you're asking. Well, I say thinks what it thinks you're asking for. Someone allegedly had put in whatever AI platform it was, asking for salmon in the river. And it did give salmon in the river. But as we know, this is probably not what was being asked for. And so this is an important reminder that this is how misinformation happens with AI as well, especially if you're considering working with a chatbot, or if that's part of the AI platform, one of which we will be talking about today. It's a little harder to catch sometimes with words, and this is why we need to double check, triple check our information to make sure we are not, just to make sure we're catching any mistakes. So that is my fun critical fail, yes. Thanks, Jen. So yes, with that, today we are talking about an AI platform that is called MagicSchool. We will be talking about prompting and tool exploration within it. And this is actually here, I'll go here. This is an AI platform that is made by educators for educators. So it's one we wanted to showcase a little bit because there are so many different AI platforms out there. A lot of them are very widely trained on anything and are made for kind of anything and not anything specific. So sometimes when you have a platform that's a little more tailored for what we need it for, it can be a little more helpful. So we wanted to show you that today. It focuses on the creation of teacher materials, and it does have a chatbot support for common teacher and admin tasks. Quick review from our first session. The main points we kind of had from it were talking about AI, understanding that it is not some understanding sentient being. It is not a calculator. It simply is a model that predicts things. We were talking about approaching AI with balance, valuing it as a tool, but not always as a first choice, and to not blindly trust it. And that effective prompting is pretty much the more information, the better. Obviously, we have more structured instructions for you today and what that could look like. It's not just more information. You want it to be specific and effective. But that's something that we're going to dig into more specifically today and in the context of this educational AI platform. So MagicSchool has a lot of tools for creating different materials and other items. The categories they have, some of it includes creating instructional materials, other ways you can kind of get ideas for differentiation, other things about engaging families and communities, generating original content. The ones you see here as examples are like a rubric generator, sentence starters, class newsletter, and we will get to have some time today to dig into more examples, but especially we're going to let you guys explore a little bit on your own to try some out that you would find useful. We want to have some reminders for best practices for using AI. Number one, and always number one, is to check for bias and accuracy. We know that AI might occasionally produce biased or incorrect content. Always double check before sharing with students or before moving forward with anything. So that's going to be probably the biggest thing that we emphasize. One way that Magic School wanted to have that idea is calling it the 80/20 approach, where you can start off with the AI tool to start your work, but you always need to make sure that you finish up the work, that you go through and you tweak anything, that you check it, and that you contextualize appropriately for the last, as they said, 20% or higher percentage is also okay. Your judgment matters. Again, it's a starting point, not a final solution. Always adhere to your school's guidelines. And you're also a teacher. You are the expert here. You get to bring your expertise to this situation. So while AI seems like a magical, amazing thing that knows everything, it does not. And it's just a tool. And you get to use what you've learned and what you do every day in the classroom to contribute to your creation of your materials through these tools. Knowing your limits too. In this situation, for Magic School AI, they say that the knowledge stops on its last training date, so recent topics may not be up to date. And this is honestly pretty true for most AI platforms. They all have a sort of training date, even though now a lot of them are browsing and doing different things. Just remember that a lot of things are not, especially if they're not browsing, they are only trained up to a certain date and they're not going to, quote, know or have information on current events. And also, even past events, or sometimes what they're trained on it's not everything. So that's why you want to remember that it's another reason why it might make some mistakes and not always be correct. So check on that and keep that in mind. And lastly, protect privacy. Do not include personal student details like names or addresses. So obviously there's going to be some activities you might be doing that include your student names. Maybe if they're first names, it's not a big deal, but the biggest point is that if you don't really want to have your students' first and last names, especially not anything as sensitive as addresses or other things like that. So that's just best practices when you're working with AI. Even consider like for yourself. A lot of times people using AI, just like ChatGPT, might be putting a lot of their information in to make a resume. You're putting in a lot of your sensitive information into that. And so those are things to keep in mind when dealing with these sorts of things. And especially in this case, since we have other people, our students, we really want to be sensitive about that. All right, so we are going to talk more about prompting. Last time we talked a little bit about what effective prompting is, and we gave some examples. And today we have a little more structured versions for you, and also in the context of different tools that we're going to show you with Magic School. This is a really helpful distinguishing between using an AI tool perhaps and searching on the internet. So I like how it says here, like searching on like Google. When you do that, you're just putting in a few words. It's short, concise, and it kind of casts a wide net. Whereas prompting is the opposite, where you're wanting to put in a lot of specific information and it's going to hone in onto something specific. So we want to make sure that we're practicing and kind of refining our prompting skills so that the better you get at it, the better and quicker maybe you're going to get better output. So as an example, they have three different parts here that you can think about. First, they have defined the role you want the AI to assume. So you can kind of quote, talk to the AI and say, imagine you are this type of person. So here, of course, they have, you are a 7th grade science teacher. Of course, I'm already using words I don't really want to use that are imagine. It's just, again, input that it's going to take and create a scenario, right? Or create something that matches your criteria. So then define the task you want the AI to complete. Here it says create a 5E lesson plan for the introductory lesson to mitosis. So that's a little more specific, right? But if most of us here are teachers, we know a lesson plan is no simple thing. So if you just told AI, please make a lesson plan about this one topic, that is not sufficient for actually creating high quality output, especially for a lesson plan. Especially if you think of for different activities that break down within the lesson, you could make those a little more simple, but you would still need enough information for each of those to be high quality. If you're going to talk about a lesson plan, you're really going to need a lot more information. But this is just kind of the bare bones, getting you thinking about how to start, because prompting can feel really overwhelming. And so these are 3 simple ways you can kind of build off of as you are creating your prompt. The last one, of course, is important details. And you want to make sure that your generation matches the output you're looking for. This lesson should focus on learning the name of the phases of mitosis, as well as the order in which the phases occur. So a little more specific about what you want the lesson to be about. This still, again, like I said, would fit like a worksheet for me of this small of prompting. We'll get a little bit more into lesson planning and those things, but the lesson plan tool has actually so many more fields you can fill out to make it more specific. But this is just, again, a little introductory part of prompting for you. Before we get a little more into prompting, one thing I did want to point out is that, as we've talked about with AIs being trained on a bunch of data, and that they're only trained up into a certain point, it has many outdated or a lot of outdated information. One of which Elizabeth Bennett actually passed on this really helpful article called Pedagogical Biases in AI-Powered Educational Tools, the Case of Lesson Plan Generators. It is really a great read, and I highly recommend it. But just to sum it up, it was talking about how AI lesson plan generators generally have pedagogical biases, many being older and outdated. They end up creating more teacher-centered plans rather than lessons to support student engagement. So that's something that a lot of us are probably aware of. And as we are working on our own research and our own professional development as teachers, we're always trying to become more student-centered. So that is just something I'm going to encourage you to put in your prompts as well, since the AI is not potentially going to immediately provide that sort of activity in your lesson plans. So some of my solutions are, again, remembering you're the expert and you're going to tell it what to do more specifically, and be as specific as you can, and always check the output and change it when you need to. So some examples I have for you related to this topic specifically are in this little list. These were the categories that were included in the article that they were kind of measuring to see if the kind of AI chatbots that they were working with, how well they did on each of these little categories. The first 3, interaction, opportunities to share ideas, and problem solving, it kind of included it sometimes, but the last 3, goal, directed behavior, initiative, and shared authority, it mostly never did, or at least it was very, very low. And so these are helpful starting points for us to start thinking about too, when you're prompting and you're creating a lesson, and if you're already trying to make your lesson student-centered, you want to help the AI know that as well and tell it what to do. So these are some words you can start to think about in your prompts. I just want to make sure I'm also keeping track of our chat here in case there are any questions. Okay. Perfect. So I know I'm talking at you a lot. I'm trying to roll through these. Thanks for your patience, everyone. We're going to have more interaction soon. But to give you some examples and show you some very specific tools from MagicSchool, one is their chatbot called Raina. That's their little name for it. And it functions very similarly to how you might use other chatbots like ChatGPT, Gemini, and so forth. Um, so here, as you can see in the picture, you can ask anything, say anything there. Sometimes they give you suggestions for prompts if you're needing it or whatever. But here we have the little guidelines that they've given us to remember um, when prompting the chatbot. So here, of course, they're kind of like Elizabeth already said in the chat to treat it like a person, but it's not really a person. With Raina, you can assign Raina a specific role, ask Raina to then complete a specific task and include the important details and everything I just kind of showed you. But I kind of have added on the end again, as I will sound like a broken record, but check and edit every time. And I'll explain a little bit more about edit. In a situation with a chatbot like this, there's a free version of MagicSchool and there's a paid version. In this free version, as far as I've experienced, you can have conversations where you put a prompt in, you get output back, and then if something wasn't how you wanted, you can say something back and say, okay, now change this, do this, and it will keep working with that. When it comes to the tools, there is not a conversation aspect to it, and you have to go and edit your prompt. And I'll explain that later, but just so we're a little aware of that, this is a place that you're having a conversation with the chatbot. So here is where I'm going to have you engage just a little bit because I know I'm talking at you a lot. I was talking to Raina and I was going to be like, okay, I'm going to make a prompt and see if she can give me some output. So I want you guys to answer in the chat. Do you see the role that I'm assigning Raina? What is the task I'm asking? And what are the details? You don't have to answer every single one of those questions. At least throw one or two of those in the chat. I have highlighted some of them in my prompt right now. But just to get you guys thinking and noticing and hopefully not being too bored, go ahead and throw in the chat at least one or two of what you see. What is the role that Raina has here that I'm telling it? I could say her, but whatever the case. What are the details I'm including? There are actually a lot of details. I haven't even highlighted all the details either, but it's just to get us thinking. So yes, the role is a computer digital literacy teacher for English learners. Outline vocab is for English learners, good. I did talk about length. That is one I will say too, is when you're working with chatbots, if many of you have yet, you will notice some can be very, very wordy and they're going to give you way more than you want. So I even I had made this prompt before and hadn't included the length I wanted yet. And I had to go back and add it to be like, actually, also please make sure this is really short. So that is good noticing. So yes, we're talking about the internet. It's a 4-lesson unit plan. So I'm not even just saying like a unit plan. I want to be very specific of how many am I asking for? What do I want from this? And to be honest, I know if I'm creating my lessons, I'm going to put even more information than this. But this again is just to get us thinking and to kind of realize how much it takes for prompting and that we're not just wanting to put some little sentence in there and that we just know that's not going to give us what we want. So this is just helping us get a little closer to thinking that through. All right. Thank you guys for participating a little bit and for looking at that, just to help us think. And as we're doing this, you will eventually be making your own. So you can think about this as we go to I clearly put like what my role as a teacher is. That's how you can do it for yourself too if you want. You can pick something else if you want. Think of the things you'll probably want to try when you get to prompt yourself. So like we said, this is just kind of an overview. You guys already got it, but of course the role is being a digital literacy teacher for adult English learners. The specific task was creating a 4-lesson unit plan on the internet. And I had many other details in here, but of course the topics of vocabulary, the English levels I was thinking about, and actually because I only read the article, I think yesterday, that I was just mentioning about pedagogical biases, I would also actually want to put in there, I would want to be specific about making it student-centered, thinking about those kind of engaging activities where I'm talking less and the students are doing more. So you could kind of go on and on about more things you would want to put, but these are some top points that we could think about. And again, going back to check and edit it, instead of, yeah, because you don't want to put the prompt in, get output, and then copy paste. Big no. Do not copy paste, at least immediately. You can copy paste to edit if you need to. But we have had many people run into issues when doing that, so we do not recommend that. All right, so now I'm going to show you a specific tool that you can use in MagicSchool. So they're trying to make prompting easier, which is really nice. Each tool defines the task you want the AI to accomplish. So of course we've seen our little outline of define the task you want the AI to accomplish. Here they really break it down for the type of specific task and details to include. So for the rubric generator, for example, you have a lot of different fields you can fill out. You don't have to do them all, but it's really nice that they have that option, and it kind of reminds you what information to include. So again, the more information and the more specific you can be, the better. One thing I especially would point out, if you can see on this, sorry if it's a little small, there is a button called Add File. And here, for example, maybe you have standards and objectives, standards set to align to. That would be fantastic if you have already a file with that information. That's exactly the information you know that you want it to come from. It is not maybe trained on all the standards, for example, out in the wild and whatever AI platforms are being trained on. That is your opportunity to give it exactly the information you want it to pull from. And I will say that is highly recommended, because if you just ask it from the chatbot itself without giving that information, it's just going to be a little bit more work sometimes for you if it isn't trained on that data. So this is just a little bit more, okay, yeah, it's to talk about uploading files here. I forgot that, but lots of details, adding files. You do have a word limit for each, but it's pretty generous, I think. So most people don't seem to run into that as much of, oh no, I have too much. But yeah, maybe don't like upload a whole textbook. That's probably would be like, don't do that. Maybe pick, if you have a page, that would be more beneficial than it probably can't take a whole textbook. Some buttons to point out in a lot of the tools. Add file was one I've already talked about. Web search, I was playing with it a little bit, and honestly, to be honest, I wasn't sure if it was actually a button. I thought it was, but I think when you hover over it, it really does just say sometimes browsing is enabled and sometimes it's not. Nick, did you have something to say about this potentially? I didn't know if you were taking your mic off for any reason. Maybe not. Okay.
Go ahead. I unmuted by accident.
Okay, no, sorry. I just wanted to make sure because
Yeah.
just in case. No, perfect. Sometimes browsing is enabled, sometimes it's not. That's something that you can explore with a little to see if it does or not. But that is something that's there. Instead of it, because again, the real difference between that, it just means if it's not browsing enabled, it's just going to be taking from its training data. But if it's browsing enabled, it will also pull from the internet and more current things. So that's just what that might mean sometimes. Show exemplar is a really good one. If you're kind of stuck and you're not sure what to do, you can click show exemplar, which is up in the top, and it will give you some examples. It'll kind of fill out each field to give you some ideas of what you could say. And then prompt editor is the button I really wanted to talk about. When you are using a tool, like I've mentioned, you cannot have, because it's the free version, you cannot have a conversation with it. 'Cause it will look like the way it gives you output once you submit your prompts. It will give you output, and then it will kind of look like, oh, maybe I can respond. In these situations, that's the limit. You've already just gotten your output. But the workaround for that is by clicking the prompt editor, you can just go back and change your prompt to then see if that can change the output you get. So you're not having to start something all over at all. It's just that you're not continuing it in a conversation form. You just have to go back and edit it. So it's not a big deal. Just be aware of that if you are trying to continue a conversation with it. And lastly, we have a button for accessibility. If you click this button, it just helps you change some settings that make things more accessible for different needs you might have working on the website. So here's another example. Actually, I'll say too, with this screenshot of the teacher tools, they always say on MagicSchool AI, they'll say, oh, wow, we have 80 plus tools available for you on the free version. And so there are so many different tools you can use. It can feel a little overwhelming at first. But if you can even see, you can filter the different categories there, and you can kind of narrow down what you're looking for. That'll be another part when you are exploring a little bit that you can make sure you narrow it down so it doesn't feel so overwhelming. So again, we have our similar format here that we're talking about. In this situation, this is a worksheet generator is one of the options. They only have 2 fields. So this is where it's important to keep in mind the format we're using for prompting, but they always might have a little extra things here and there. For example, this says grade level. One thing they do talk about with MagicSchool AI is that it's maybe geared a little bit more towards K through 12. However, it's very useful still in the ABE world. And for me as an English teacher, I was thinking, okay, in my computer class, what are the general levels of my students? And even though I put in my prompt, maybe high beginning, low intermediate English speakers, I can go kind of look up, okay, NRS English levels, what is the grade level equivalent for maybe reading or something? And so it kind of came up with like between 2nd and 3rd grade. So sometimes you might have to do a little bit of extra research with that. But the more that you prompt, hopefully you can tell it those things as well and see if it can pick up on that as well. So just keep that in mind, being adult teachers. In this case, of course, I gave it the same role because that is my role as a teacher. And I was going along with my idea of my internet lessons that I'm teaching this month. And this time I asked it to write a very simple 5-question worksheet that has the learner fill in the blank with the following vocabulary. And so I have some vocabulary. That would be a very specific thing I would encourage y'all to make sure you include. Do not just say with some vocabulary. Y'all know this, but these are things that sometimes because you're doing a lot of writing, it can be easy to forget sometimes. Again, I focused on the language level of the students. And again, this is still a bit too simple of a prompt in my opinion, but I could only fit so many words on a slide for you guys. Maybe one thing I would ask, is there anything that anyone could think of that would be maybe more important details I should include when creating, let's say, a worksheet? I do want it to be simple, but is there anything else that you guys think would be helpful for me to put in my prompt so that I get even better quality output? Is there something I'm forgetting that could be making sure the students do a certain thing, or that maybe there are instructions at the top? Make sure that the instructions though are very simple in one sentence. One thing that happens a lot with AI, like I said, it's very wordy. And I think even for the output for one of these that I got, it starts off with this huge introduction that is way too many words and is very unnecessary. So I had to go back and edit my prompt and say, please do not include this. Like sometimes you have to tell it actually, do not include something, or at least tell it specifically. Include an introduction, but it's only instructions that is 1 sentence long, and it's very simple language so that it's attainable for my learners. So those are all things to think about with prompting in the tools. Okay, really quick before, oh, sorry. before I move on, I know I'm talking a lot and I'm trying to go a little quickly so I give y'all time to do some exploring. Um, just in case, really quick, yeah, if y'all do ever have questions, I see some of y'all have put some things in the chat. Feel free to keep doing that. Elizabeth and Nick have their eyes on some things. And of course, Nick and Elizabeth, if there's something I'm missing, feel free to stop me and ask me a question that someone might be asking if needed. You guys will get time soon to try this yourselves, but I'm going to show you one more thing that is a part of Magic School that is actually really helpful. And I appreciate that they thought of this because, again, prompting's a lot. I have a background in AI for like only 2 years before this job that I had because I was an AI data trainer. And part of my job was prompting the assistant. And so, or prompt, we always called it the assistant, prompting the chatbot. So I have a background in that. And it still was a lot for me to think about. So they have included a tool for teachers to ask the assistant to help you prompt better. Let me actually show you so that I can say that better. It supports you with your AI literacy and helps you write effective prompts. So obviously you're already coming in with this background that we're talking about. We're thinking about these formatting ideas, this outline that we could use. What is more information we want to include? If you feel stuck and that maybe you're not getting very good output, or you also just don't know what to write sometimes for your prompt, you can go to what is called the prompt assistant, and you can put in a prompt and it will tell you, here's how you can improve your prompt. So it's very meta, where it's you're prompting to get better prompts. And I appreciate that they included that because they seem to understand that that's a really important piece to this. So um, let's see. You can see it looks like Raina. It's called the prompt assistant. Um, and you obviously like try to do your best to put in your own prompts, the best that you've learned. And then it will give you some responses. So you know what? I don't know if I actually included my output on here. I might have to go show you from another spot. But either way, I I only did this to try to give an example where I gave an even simpler prompt. I didn't do a very good prompt. And I said, oh, you're an English teacher. Make a simple worksheet. 5 fill in the blank questions using internet vocabulary. And when I did that, I'm actually going to see if I can find. Oh, yes, we have this handout. Can everyone see my slides here for this handout? Someone just say yes. So perfect. Okay. Thanks, you guys, for your patience. So here, this is a handout you guys will have access to. But down here, this is what I wanted to just show you, that I put in this very simple prompt just to see what it would say. Oh, thank you. I see, Elizabeth, you're probably copying it and pasting it places. Thank you. Either way, it tells me the improved prompt that it gave me. So it like creates a better one itself. And then it goes as far as to also explain how did it improve the prompt. So you kind of get to learn from that, and you can take those notes with you into future prompting as you go. So it's kind of nice. It's a very helpful way to learn from it, I find. So that is a very helpful tool if you feel some of this is overwhelming. That can be a great place to start. Thank you for putting that in the chat, Elizabeth. All right, back to our little presentation. We're getting close. We're almost done with my little portion here. Okay. Yes, okay, we are done with my portion here. So here's what we want you guys to do. I guess the first thing is what I should have put on here as well. If many of you do not have an account with MagicSchool, you can go look up MagicSchool AI, and you can easily make an account with whatever Gmail you would want to use, some simple thing. You can use your work email if you want to, but thank you for putting that in the chat. You can go to the chat and find a link to that. Take a little moment to get into it and see what you can try. And once you're in the, I guess it's like an app, once you're on the platform, the main thing we want you to do is start with just one prompt. Try to create your own prompt based on the guidelines that we've talked about today. Add your prompt to the assistant first, like I just showed you, to see what it would do to improve the prompt. And then take your final prompt and go to find a tool that you would like to use that in. Well, I don't know if that's kind of backwards though too. Maybe I could also say you might want to look for a tool first to think about what your prompt is going to be. It's up to you. You can kind of choose what makes the most sense for you. Because there are a lot of tools to look through, and those will obviously your prompts will be different based on that. So either way, those are the three things that we want you to do. I have provided the guidelines here for you to look at as a reference. And I'm going to start a 10-minute timer to get us going. And it's
Actually,
just,
Melody,
oh,
I'm sorry,
yep,
this is going to mess up your timer.
nope, not
You
at
want to
all.
advance one more slide.
No, it'll be
I'll
fine.
So there's a handout,
Thank you.
and if you're watching the recording, you can pause the recording here and either scan the QR code or type in that tiny URL. For those of you who are here, I'll just drop the link in the chat in a moment.
That is
And
helpful.
then Melody can go back and I'll pause the recording and we'll start the timer.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Elizabeth. I appreciate it. I will wait just like a minute for you guys to go ahead and try that, but it will be in the chat either way. So I'll just give you just a few, maybe more like a few seconds, I guess, before I go back to the other one. But at least the link will be in the chat that you can easily access. Okay, I'm going to go back to the other one for now, but if anyone does need help anytime through any of this, please feel free to jump in the chat and ask for help or say, what were we doing again? Please let us know because we are chill here and oops, and we're here to help you. So I will start this timer now, but again, if we need to do something different, anyone let me know. And yeah, in 10 minutes, we'll come back together and do some sharing out and see what we got from it.
So welcome back from the workshop time. Um, if you're viewing the recording, you won't be able to participate in the Mentimeter, unfortunately. But I do intend to share the results. So if you are here, you can either click the link in the chat to participate in the Mentimeter. And we would encourage you to do that just so we have some sort of written record for folks who aren't able to attend synchronously. But in a few minutes after you've had a chance to respond, if you want to turn on your microphone and share out, that would be great too. We're thinking about what are one or two tools that you are excited to share with your colleagues, and how did adding details impact your outputs? So I guess I should have been more specific. In Magic School, are you excited about the rubric generator or the lesson planner, the worksheet generator? Yeah, there are a lot of tools to choose from. So let us know which ones seem really interesting and exciting. Yeah, so Magic School does have an image generator, um, which is nice because it's included with the free version. A lot of the time you have to pay to use a lot of AI image generators. Um, I do think writing a good prompt for an image is like a whole nother level of prompting skill. But it is possible.
It was something I almost thought about doing today, but we would not have had time. So you can play with it a little, but even keep in mind the what we've learned about prompting so far. And yeah, you will find that with image generation, it is much more and it takes some time. So while image generation can be fun and interesting, it's not always going to maybe be your best tool to use. So depending on what you're needing. So just keep that in mind. It is fun to try out though, so feel free to play around with that and learn from it.
Yeah, and I would also add image generation is also one of the AI uses that takes more energy. So if you're concerned about the environmental impact of AI, that is one to be particularly careful about. Not that you can never use it, but just using it wisely.
Yeah, maybe if you don't need to use it, maybe don't play around with it too much.
Good. And I think we haven't had a whole lot of time to add to the second question. But yeah, sometimes someone said, the lesson was good enough for a rough draft. Like, yeah. If that's the nice thing about Magic School, I think it has those tools in there to make it easier for you.
Yeah, I do think that that is always kind of how it should be too, is that it should always kind of be, okay, it's a rough draft and now I'm going to take it and refine it and make it my own. So that actually, that's good to hear it was good enough. And then, yeah, you can take it and run with it. But yeah, no worries if a lot of y'all didn't get that far. This is just kind of to get you guys started and to get you thinking about it. And that if you wanted to try it while we're here, you can ask us some of these questions or at least start trying it out. You can go try this now whenever. And you guys will have access also to the handout and to, I think, the slides, right, Elizabeth? If they need to go back and see some things.
Yes, so there's already a link to the slides on the handout. And
Oh, of
then,
course.
yeah, I'll send the links in the follow-up email as usual.
Perfect. So you guys can always reference back to these things because it takes time to dealing with AI is actually a lot. And especially when some of us are we're trying to be mindful and we're trying to navigate these things. And especially as teachers, it can be really overwhelming. So we just wanted to give you a little push in the right direction and have some tools to take with you as you dive into this topic and some of these things you can use as a teacher. And hopefully, if you can find them useful, great. And it's just another tool to try and see if it's helpful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and it's not on the screen, but someone shared in the chat that they also use the rubric generator.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's, oh my gosh, making rubrics is so hard. So it would be great to have an assistant to help me with that. Um, this person said, the results were tougher on the student than I would have liked, so I need to learn how to make it not so difficult.
Yeah, perfect. That's a great example. So, yeah, you can definitely take that and be like, okay, yeah, what could you try with your prompt that see if you could make it less difficult on your student. And this is just going to be something too that you'll have to kind of have discernment to decide, is it going to be more work to generate these things through AI than yourself? Some of these things, yeah, some of these things you will just want to make them yourselves. But there are a lot of these things. I do think a rubric is a good example of something that hopefully AI could be a little helpful with, where there's a lot of tedious parts of it that you can just drop some information in and it creates it. And so hopefully y'all can explore with it, keep trying to refine your prompts, and even just not just for being a teacher or whatever your role is in work, just in life with AI, knowing that it is a messy topic and we're trying our best to just move forward into it mindfully as it's here and uh, to have some tools in your pocket since it's here. So thank you guys for coming. And any other last words, Elizabeth?